Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos. Welcome to Fairview Capital's Fearless Investor Webinar, where female leaders in the alternative space can convene, exchange ideas, and speak openly on topics most relevant to our industry today. We have two exciting panels taking place. The first one is entitled Taking My Shot, Forging Your Own Path in the Male-Dominated Private Equity and Venture Capital Industry. And the second panel is Leading by Example, Building an Enduring Emerging Manager Platform. During the webinar, we encourage you to submit questions via the Q&A box below. We have allocated time at the end to answer questions, and if we don't get to yours, we will follow up post-webinar. Please note that we have media personnel in the audience today. Many of you know Fairview Capital. For those of you that don't know us, we were founded by Joanne Price and Dr. Lawrence Morse 27 years ago. We are an independent SEC registered firm with aggregate fund capitalization of $10.1 billion since inception. We are 100% minority owned and 50% female owned, and we believe we bring a unique perspective to the industry through the firm's diversity and culture. It is a pleasure for me to pass this on to Joanne Price, Managing Partner and co-founder of Fairview Capital Partners. Joanne is a member of Fairview's investment committee and manager of all Fairview-sponsored funds. She is a pioneer in this industry, and we thank her for helping to pave the way before us. Joanne?
Thank you, Damaris, and welcome. Today, we have the unique opportunity to hear from general partners that have been founders of firms and have helped to build very significant firms. And I also am pleased to say that Fairview is an investor in each one of these firms. And that says a lot about where our business is and where it is going. And as a part of Fairview, we are all very proud of the female general partners and founders that we have within the Fairview portfolio and other portfolios that Fairview is a part of across the country. Every participant, and today I'm not going to read the bios of all of our participants because you have that in your information, but I will introduce them and then enable us to go forward and hear from them. I'd like to just introduce Netta Donish-Zeta, co-founder and managing partner of Preload Growth. Daphne Dufresne, managing partner of Gen-X 360. Miriam Rivera, CEO and founder and managing partner of Ulu Ventures. Evelise Simon, managing partner of Avante Capital Partners. And I'd like to say a couple things, and then we're going to go right in to hear from them directly. One thing we all know is that the journey in the private equity business is a unique journey. It is a business of personal self-examination. It requires the ability to understand your strengths, your challenges, your networks, and the ability to persevere. And each one of these individuals have demonstrated that ability because, for one reason, they're here to tell the story. And number two, they are doing very, very well in the building of their firm. And so what I'd like to start out with this morning is to ask each one, and we'll start with Netta, to really talk about their own journey. And this is so important because the journey for female GPs and entrepreneurs in their own right is unique. No two journeys are the same. And you will find that the case with all of these great general partners. So I'm going to start with Netta and then go to Miriam Evelise, and then Daphne.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here and have an opportunity to share my story. I actually moved to the West from Iran. I'm originally Iranian, born there, and moved to the UK, given the revolution in that country, with my family and a couple of suitcases when I was 7 years old, and grew up in the UK. And after college, worked at Morgan Stanley, and wanted to come to America. It was my dream to come to this country and experience what it was like. And at the age of 24, I came to America for the first time, and have kind of on a 9-month visa and never looked back. You know, I've spent my career across, always in the consumer space. I'm deeply passionate about the consumer and the consumer economy, and spent time, as I shared, at Morgan Stanley as a banker to consumer clients. And then I joined McKinsey and Company, serving global strategic consumer clients, and actually worked at a major retailer. I wanted to get in some operating experience as well, and worked at Bed Bath & Beyond. This was kind of without aging myself, back in 2005, when they just gone public. They were the darling of Wall Street, had 500 stores when US store 1100 was going to be by Cross Street, and had the experience, went off to business school in the interim, and then really desired to get into the private equity space, but had no investing experience. And a mentor of mine at the time said, you should do it. And actually she was one of the first people that put the idea of private equity really strongly in my head, and just said, you're passionate about a category, you've had broad experience, this is the natural next step for you. And I always go back to her and thank her, because it was down to her that she put the bug in my ear, and joined the global consumer fund at the time called L. Catterton. And look, when I joined that firm, it was a small, relatively small in the grand scheme of things, $600 million fund. And I spent the next 12 years of my career there. I became the first female partner in the firm's 30-year history. By the time I left, the firm had gone from a single fund with $600 million fund, and today has close to $20 billion under management. And so spent that dozen years there, seeing that evolution. I was a member of their investment committee. I was the first woman to ever go on maternity leave at the firm, professional woman. So a lot of ground was broken, and had a fantastic career there. And as the firm got bigger and bigger, and you know, I guess I can say this, got into my 40s and thought about the next 25 years of my career, it was really now or never to forge the path of building what we would believe to be a modern consumer private equity fund, you know, building brands for this new modern generation of consumers. And that's what we did, myself and my co-founder, Alicia Sontag, and we formed Prelude Growth Partners, and we're on our second fund and having fun. That's my journey.
So Miriam Vera, and my journey into venture capital probably started with going to law and business school. I didn't really think I would end up on the finance side of the professions that I was interested in. It developed over time as an interest area for me. When I first graduated, I went into a major law firm, and I worked on something that was going to be ultimately influential in terms of my career. I was the associate in charge of certain portions of an initial public offering for an internet search engine that was going public in 1995. And at that time, there were probably 30 million users worldwide on the internet. But, you know, so I was kind of early to this awareness that the internet was changing how people would do work. Before, many of us that practice law, we had access to proprietary databases to do research. but we paid subscription fees for them. They were very expensive. And working on this first generation internet company, I was able to see that technology was really changing, and that even though at the time the internet was pretty poor compared to proprietary databases, that it would ultimately end up being something that would benefit large numbers of people, that it would be available 24/7, that you could use it to save money on things that you needed to do research on. And, you know, I really appreciated the fact of how early it really was that the internet was beginning to change software. Later on, I went to work at Google, where I was the first VP and Deputy General Counsel for the company. And a lot of what I'd learned being, you know, as a first-year associate, you're pretty much doing all the grunt work on diligence, but that means you really actually know a lot about what is being said in these documents, because you've gone through boxes and boxes of contracts and agreements for employment, and you understand the monetization. And so it turned into a very useful grunt job that I was able to do. And then when I got hired at Google, I really understood the basics of the business, and I understood the basics of search. And I helped make the company financially successful by understanding that the job of legal would be to get out of the way of this massive growth that the company was experiencing. And that meant really re-engineering our processes. So it's kind of this combination of ability to try to manage the risks of our business at the same time as engineer processes that would allow us to really close deals as quickly as possible, that I think were influential in terms of my being able to rise within the company, because I started off as just senior counsel, but was quickly the day-to-day manager of the legal function for what became a Fortune 500 company during that time. And at some point, since this is kind of a women's audience, I'm going to speak a little bit more bluntly than I sometimes do. We were having a problem of a cultural problem where there were a lot of inappropriate sexual relationships happening among some of the senior men and people within the company. And I was kind of caught in a very difficult situation where, as a one down from the CEO, I might have to investigate both my boss and potentially the CEO, an untenable situation. And as counsel, my duty to the client was to actually leave in a silent departure. So I left Google and went to and started considering my options in terms of what I would do. Initially, I thought I would end up being the general counsel of another company, and quickly realized that I'd pretty much built one of the most interesting legal departments I would probably ever build in any company. You know, one of the largest legal departments in Silicon Valley, and that, you know, going to work for another Fortune 500 in the Midwest or in Portland just wasn't going to be a real growth opportunity in terms of learning. And I recalled from the time when I was a practicing attorney at the law firm that one of our partners had gone into one of the big name VC firms. And so I thought of that as a possibility. And I started information networking with different people who were either super angels or investors, and realized that one advantage that I had, given that I had no experience as well in terms of investing, apart from a few angel deals that were in companies of friends, was that I had had a successful exit at Google, and I was able to start investing my own capital to gain the experience that I lacked. And so for a period of time, I thought that I would do that to identify a startup company that I would be passionate enough about to actually join and help run, and then realize that I really enjoyed the ability to both mentor young entrepreneurs, to determine to invest in people that many others were not investing in, and that it was going to be a way that I could have a portfolio of opportunities where I wouldn't be quite so vulnerable in terms of working for one client and how their issues impact your entire career. And that it was a good bet for me in terms of being able to do interesting work, as well as to be able to have more control over my own destiny.
Yes, thank you, Joanne, and thanks for having me today. You know how much I admire you, Joanne, and I just appreciate the partnership with Fairview. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'll start my journey pretty early in my life. I think that's in my childhood is really where I developed sort of the resilience and the grit that you need for this industry. It's also where I developed a passion for access to capital and to job creation, which is what I really love about being in the private equity, private credit industry. So I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and we moved to Chicago when I was young. My parents were very young as well. And I grew up in a really low income neighborhood in the South Side of Chicago. And, you know, in my family and in my neighborhood, we experienced a lot of the challenges that low income communities across the country, you know, face, which is a lot of poverty and drugs and, you know, lack of access to capital, to education, to healthcare. You know, I was very lucky. I had a really extraordinary parents, and my father was a big believer in goal setting and in the power of positive thinking. So as an example, growing up, every day we had to wake up, my sisters and I, look in the mirror, do 10 jumping jacks, and tell ourselves, today is going to be a great day. I can and I will, every day of our entire life. And I think what that did was, you know, it helped to teach us that we could really survive and thrive in any industry as long as we tried hard and just got up from failures. And that's certainly, I think, what you need to be a woman in this industry. You need to have a lot of grit, a very thick skin, and just continue to push forward despite a lot of challenges. So I was the first person to go to college. And when I graduated, I had never heard of investment banking, but I was lucky to have fabulous mentors and professors that helped me get into Salomon Brothers. And then I was just hooked. I just loved it. I just thought it was the most exciting, interesting, you know, impactful industry. And I went down that path, and I did banking, I did private equity, I went to Harvard Business School. I worked again for private equity, mostly traditional firms. And after about a dozen years working in traditional firms, I wanted to do something that was different. I wanted to build a firm that looked different, that felt different, that I really attacked this industry differently. I was so blessed to find Jerry Harmon, who's the founder of Avanti, and who hired me, by the way, pregnant with twins, which I don't know of anybody else who would hire a Puerto Rican girl pregnant with twins to be her partner to start a private equity firm. But that's this amazing woman, Jerry. So we, along with our partners, started Avanti, and here we are. 12 years later, we've raised our third fund, which is oversubscribed. We have a really strong track record and fabulous partners. And we're doing what I didn't know I wanted to do, but I knew where the passion came from. We're really investing in small businesses across the country, creating jobs. And, you know, we really have a passion for diversity, bringing in women and minorities into this industry and helping to serve underserved communities like the one that I grew up in. So I love being here. I admire my fellow panelists. Daphne has been a mentor and a role model for me forever. She's helped me through a lot of difficult times, and so I appreciate and love her. And Miriam, I feel like I always see you just on panels. We're going to have to get together outside of panels. But thanks for having me, Joanne.
I'll also start out by thanking Joanne and Cynthia for having me on this amazing panel. And it is wonderful to look at all of your faces and, you know, Evelise, the feelings are mutual. So, you know, as you heard, my name's Daphne Dufresne. I'm a managing partner at Gen X 360, which is a middle market firm with 1.8 billion under management. We focus on business services and niche manufacturing. But if I go back in time to my journey and my path, I'll start off by saying I'm the proud daughter of Haitian immigrants. And, you know, I'm gonna celebrate Haiti because we've been in the news and it has been so great. You know, strong country with a great place in history. So I'm first generation American and grew up very modestly, and that's probably a nice way of saying poor. But we were always well fed, and education and hard work were paramount. And, you know, probably like Evelise, I learned very early on how important money is in a person's life, how important money is in a family. And so I was keenly focused on access to capital as well. As a kid, though, I was really good at math and science. And so everyone around me said, oh, you got to be an engineer. And so I studied and graduated with a degree in biomedical engineering. And coming out of school, I think being on UPenn's campus where Wharton was there, I always had a keen interest in business. And again, if you think about the family background, always wanted to figure out how to make money. Consulting sounded very interesting to me. I did management consulting for 2 years coming out of school. I pivoted and then worked in structured finance for the Bank of Scotland in the UK. So I got some international experience, which was great. And that was really where I learned kind of what private equity was. It wasn't a term that I was familiar with growing up, but it, you know, clearly became kind of, in my mind, a way to be an entrepreneur, but do it in a portfolio manner and kind of minimize your risk. So I came back to the States. I went to Harvard Business School. I joined a leading Boston venture capital and growth equity fund. And I think there was where I really honed my skills on being a good investor and, you know, understanding how to do due diligence and, you know, led a number of highly successful deals. I was then recruited by a friend who had launched a fund of funds. They were looking for someone to lead their co-investments and direct investment portion of their firm. And I did that. And it was great because I learned kind of what LPs look for in a fund, but I also led some really highly successful co-investment deals on their behalf. And then I got a call from a billionaire who was looking to launch a fund. And it was exciting because I get to start a new fund. And that's exactly what we did. You know, I had a chance to build a team, raise the capital, you know, create an investment strategy. And we did that across a portfolio of 12 companies. And it was a great experience. But over time, I think I learned, you know, there were things about what I wanted and my goals, and that weren't necessarily being met. So I started thinking about going back and launching my own fund. And that's when I met my current partners at Gen X 360. And the timing was perfect because they were thinking about succession and bringing on a senior hire. And I joined Gen X about 4.5 years ago, and it's been a really good fit. And, you know, across all that time frame, you know, I've had 3 children, you know, like Evelise, you know, I've had twins. People think I'm crazy, but I went back for more and had another child 4 years later. And so have learned over the years, you know, how you balance career, marriage, raising children. We may talk about that later. It's been a great ride.
Thank you, Daphne. So there's a few different things I want to be able to cover over the next 20 minutes. But I think it's very important. So one is the whole issue of raising capital. And all of you made the point that networks and relationships in that process, very important. And then I also want to say, this seminar is not designed to make men our enemy. It's just the opposite, because all of us have had men in our lives. Some of them are husbands. I don't think I could have really been help to build this business if I did not have a very supportive husband. So that's not the point of today's seminar. The point is to be able to find our own power, our own ability, our own way of building successful firms, or be a part of being in a successful firm. And so my question here is the issue of raising capital and the approach that was used to be able to do that, and the networks that were necessary and essential to be able to do that. And so, Evelise, I want to start with you because you've had a unique approach, but I want each of you to try to do it like in a minute, so that we have, because there's lots of other questions that I want to be able to ask you.
Well, listen, raising capital isn't easy for first-time funds. It gets easier while you have really strong returns, right? And that's one thing that we focus a lot on our team, where diversity is important to us, very important to us. We really want to serve communities, but first and foremost, we have to perform. And I tell my team, we have to perform better than everybody so that there's really no question, right? And I think that that's really important. The network that you're talking about, Joanne, is critical. I mean, I think we have to, as building firms, you have to have many roles. You have to be the deal maker, the fundraiser, right? Operating the business. We have to work 5 different jobs. That was my minute.
Okay. Netta?
Yeah, look, I think nothing in life is more important than the relationships that you build over the course of your career, and you'll tap into those many, many times. And I think it was just remarkable the number of networks or relationships that we tapped into for us and our firm. So, that was absolutely key.
Was there a unique network or individual or anyone with respect to the building of your firm that you thought this stood out?
Yeah, look, I think a couple of things. One was a former partner of mine at McKinsey, though he had always served private equity clients. So he ran the private equity practice at the time. So although he wasn't an investor himself, he understood the industry and knew a lot of LPs. And I think he knew me well. And I think what was really defining for us is when he said to me, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that sustained me. And it was so important because I trusted him. And I knew, and at that moment you just breathed, because again, I can withstand time, but it's the ultimate not knowing, which is when you embark on this journey. If you've never raised a fund before, what happens if you don't? Like those minutes, unless you're incredibly confident. I'd like to hope I'm confident, but not that confident. It's just the not knowing, because it's the first time you're embarking on this journey. And so that was just, I don't know, just sustained me emotionally and mentally to know it's a matter of if. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I think that was critically important to me. And then again, just tapping into those random relationships that we've had that made some connections to some of our very earliest LPs, who those warm introductions were everything and really got the ball rolling for us. So critical for actually helping, but also critical mentally and emotionally as well.
Thank you. So Daphne, I'm familiar actually with a good part of your journey, but I'm interested in getting your sense of those mentors and individuals that were there with you over time. Because one thing we also know in the journey is that where you start and how you start sometimes is not where you just stay, and you make a decision. It's time for me to move on, and you do that without. Let's see how I want to say that. You do it because you do not want anybody along the way to step on your ability or what it is you can achieve. And so we have to know when it's time to make changes, especially when you're confident in your own ability and what you're able to do. So I want to get a feel from you, Daphne, in terms of mentors, but also in terms of what you were able to do internally to kind of keep going forward and finding the place where you could best utilize your talent.
So I think from a mentorship perspective, I wish I could say like I had the central person that was like the end all be all. But what I did do is I made sure that I always had a cadre of people that could be very helpful that I could seek guidance from. And so one of them was a fellow Twigo alum that was 3 years, about 3 or 4 years my senior in business school. And I just kind of admired and watched his career. And he was always kind of someone I could talk to about the next steps of my career and what was going on. And, over time, we went from being, me being mentee, he being mentored, to us being peers and doing deals together. But I think that was really helpful and important. And I would say that, Michael Cronin at Weston Presidio, my first firm, was also very critical in terms of, being there and being someone who I could ask questions and kind of help guide things, post my career at Weston and always being a relationship. But I think, the thing that I've learned is you can find mentorship in so many places. I mean, I find mentorship in Evelise, and when we have conversations and we may be talking about her career, but I'm getting just as much out of it, and I'm learning and thinking about how that can help me. So it's really been a broad array of people that have just been there. And I think the key thing for me has just being able to be a good listener and being able to pull information and find relevance in every conversation.
Thank you, Daphne. And Miriam?
So I've had a number of folks that I refer to as mentors, and one of the things that I found is that sometimes there are people that help you navigate a particular environment because you work with them. They're a peer, a colleague, or somebody who is even your superior. And I have found that, some of those folks have been white men. For example, my first partner at the law firm, Tom Kellerman, somebody I still respect and would turn to for advice on different things and refer clients to him very regularly. He was a really great mentor because he developed cancer very young. He had pancreatic cancer. And one of the things that he did was still come to work. And I remember asking him, okay, you might die. Why are you coming to work every day? And he basically told me about how much he really actually loved the work he did. And I thought, man, I need to do work that I would, come to work and do regardless of my health. That was something that was really influential to me. I've also had an official mentor at the Kauffman Fellows Program, which that network I think has been really important to me, in part because it was the only diverse network of VCs that I knew kind of coming into this industry. And I had a woman mentor in Susan Mason, and she's been a very important figure because she's the kind of person that I can turn to and ask any kind of questions about something on a venture deal, or like about running a firm, or, can you listen to my pitch and give me feedback. She's really done all of those things. And that's been very helpful. And then there's been kind of unofficial mentors. And one of them is Mina Pacheco Nazemi from the Twigo kind of mafia, I'll call it. And, I'm not a Twigo person at all, because I didn't think I would ever work in finance. So, but Mina has been the kind of person who said, you should really think about doing this, raise your own fund. And she's introduced a number of people, including other Latinx folks that have invested in the fund. And that was something that to me really was very meaningful, because we always have focused on diversity in our investing, but when we first went to market, a lot of that was kind of secondary to our performance. And it sometimes felt like not that relevant in terms of the LP base that we were creating. And so it was really meaningful to me to have Latinx investors and supporters that really thought we could do it. And as time has gone by, I think our ability to demonstrate the excellence of our diverse entrepreneurs has made it more meaningful for a lot of people in the LP community to invest in a firm like ours. But that early support was really like important because this isn't the most hospitable industry. I worked as a woman and a woman of color in the law, and you think that's kind of a tough environment, but you go to venture capital and it was, like 85% white men at the time we started our firm. And it was the most undiverse place I think I've ever been, apart from prep school on a full scholarship at Exeter Academy in the 1980s.
So I want to pick up on that, and I don't want us to spend too much time on this, but we focused on the positives, the mentors, the people that you were able to reach out to and who are helpful. I would also like you to spend a little bit of time about the situations that you encountered that were not positive, and in fact could have been detrimental, depending on how you would have handled it over time. Because that's a very important, to your point, Miriam, that there are some things about this industry, it's not very attractive. And so I'd like you to just spend a minute. I don't want to spend too much time on negativity, but I think it is important as people are building, it's important to understand and know some of the pitfalls, some of the things that you want to make sure you can move around and move away from, and continue to take the journey. Let's start with you, Daphne.
Sure. Look, I think these firms are partnerships, right? And partnerships are a collection of individuals. And so I know when I was founding my firm a while ago, one of the things I really focused on was, I wanted to have this kick-ass team of people that had an undisputed track record, because I knew that, as a first-time fund with people of color around the table, there would be questions about our track record and questions about, could we really do deals, right? So I wanted to surround myself with people who just had great track records, had been in the business. There was going to be never a question around our ability to transact and do transactions. And I probably did not spend enough time on, making sure value systems were the same, making sure that, not everyone likes a partnership. Some people want to be the one person in charge. And some people like having people around them that they can, collaborate and bounce things off of each other. And so understanding, what intrinsically motivates your partners and what do they want, and making sure that they have the consistent and similar values to you is really important. And I think, in hindsight, I'm very clear on that now, but there were times when, I just thought, the deals and the performance and, the returns, because that's what the LPs are going to focus on, the returns and the track record. And I think what sustains a business and what sustains a firm is the people and the value system.
Evelise?
So, I sometimes laugh thinking about some of the experiences I had in the 90s at Salomon Brothers. The overt discrimination and harassment is almost crazy as I think about it. That doesn't happen anymore so overtly, but the bias and the discrimination is still there. And it's really powerful, right? It's the reason why only 1% of all investment management firms are owned by women or minorities, right? So I think just understanding and realizing that bias, whether intentional or unintentional, is still there. But I think really doing something actively about it, right? Men are not the enemies, but they have been helping each other for millennia, right? It's time that we help each other, right? That we really, this panel is about helping women and getting women to launch. We need to be supportive of each other and answer each other's calls and go out of our way. And, the same way everybody on this panel has for people and that we try to do, but everybody in the audience, right? really make an effort. If we want more women to be in this industry, we have to help make sure that those women could get here and thrive and succeed.
That's great. So my next question or comment is that you're all building portfolios of all types, and they are all diverse portfolios, as you have all outlined. What has been, from your perspective, the most exciting aspect when you look at your portfolio, you look at the companies that you have developed? What just stands out for you? Netta, why don't we start with you?
Gosh, what stands out? I would say a couple of things. One, we are not focused on female founders. That we, as Everly said, we want to be helpful, and but we're not focused on supporting female-founded businesses or supporting minority-backed businesses. We just are looking for the very best brands because we want to deliver top decile returns for our investors, and that's our core focus. But I think we're proud of the fact that we are female check writers and that we are bringing diversity to the table. And so when we look back at our portfolio, obviously we're proud of the performance, but we're also proud of the fact that 75% of our portfolio companies have at least one female founder around the table. We're also proud of the fact that 45% of our portfolio companies have at least one minority around the table. And so we didn't try, we didn't go seeking for that. As I said, we were very clear about what we were looking for, but that is reflective of the entrepreneurs that are in the consumer industry today and the people that are building the very best brands in the consumer sector today. So we do look back on that, you know, and are extremely proud of that because we are, you know, a female-focused firm, and we're proud of just, again, we went hiring, Alicia and I, my co-founder, we are two women, but we're just looking to hire the best group, and we're proud of the diversity broadly defined across our team as well.
Thank you. Miriam?
Yeah, we don't exclusively focus on diversity in terms of our investing, but about 91% of our founding teams have a diverse member of the team. And we look at women, immigrants, underrepresented minorities, and minorities as our diversity criteria. And from my perspective, it's actually been a way to access entrepreneurs that even if they're white entrepreneurs, actually care about something that's a common goal for the industry, which is that they want to be a part of helping to create greater diversity within venture capital, within entrepreneurship. And so I find it to be something that is an advantage, if you will, in terms of building the business. And it's been also really personally inspiring, which I think, again, is important to building the business because there are plenty of hard days and there's a lot of work. Like Evelise, you said, you have to do you wear 5 different hats. And, you know, sometimes I'll have like long periods where, you know, I'm up until 2, you know, at least 2 or 3 nights a week for a while. And so it's really important to have the work that you do really fulfill something that's deeper than just great returns, in my personal view. So that's what we tend to focus on, is trying to find outliers, and you know, even better if they're with diverse teams.
Thank you.
Can I make a really quick comment? I just wanted to, you know, Nita and Miriam have done an extraordinary job of investing in diverse people, and they both mentioned it wasn't really intentional, it just happened. You know, I just want to mention to the audience that research has shown that women and minorities invest more in women and minorities, right? That's our network, and that's what happens. And so I know there's been a lot of interest with capital allocators of getting more money into underserved communities. This is how you do it, right? You invest behind people like Miriam and Nita, and Daphne, who have these networks, right? And that have the access to these diverse entrepreneurs and that are getting alpha in a very different way, in a very interesting way. So
and
just
for
wanna
us,
make-
it was very intentional. We went to market always as believing that there was not enough investment in diverse teams and that diverse teams would outperform. That was our investment hypothesis, and our portfolio has demonstrated that.
Yeah, and you're able to do that in such a great way because that's your network, right?
It's exactly 40 years of building a network. You know, since I've been in high school, I've been a part of women, Latinx, and minority networks.
Don't you just love this? It's fabulous. Okay. My colleagues are probably saying, okay, although today I've done a good job keeping it moving, but I want to just ask each of you to answer one last question, and to sort of speak to the audience and give some advice as founders yourselves, of builders, of private equity firms, of leaders, investors, because you have been involved in every aspect of what it takes to do well in this business. And so I just sort of leave something with the audience today. So I'm going to start with you, Daphne.
I think, you know, at the end of the day, what sustains you in this business is it is all about the track record, right? You have to do good deals to survive. So you have to keep that first and foremost, front and center. And I think that's paramount. But I think as you've heard all of us say, over the years, we've also tried to make sure that, you know, in addition to doing that, we're also making sure that we're doing it with people that look like us, you know, that we're giving people opportunities to be part of this industry, that we're finding entrepreneurs that have a fabulous company, a fabulous trajectory, but may have been overlooked by others. And so it becomes our special sauce. And so, you know, just kind of bridging the two and making sure that you walk away from this industry, or as you mentioned, Miriam, with your colleague, where you come to work no matter what, you know, no matter what's going on, you want to be there because you're having fun and you're having a good time and you love what you do. And it's important that we love what we do. I think we're all here, not, you know, we could all be doing other things financially. We're okay. We're here because we love what we do.
Thank you, Daphne. Nella?
I would say I would love to have more women GPs and check writers out there. And I think what really helped us get to the other side was two things. One was just going into it with the right mental mindset, just to sustain yourself. And so what I would say is just surround yourself by people that give you confidence, have that group of people that are gonna be there for you, because there are no's, and some of us aren't used to being told no, or aren't used to, like, we've been successful our careers, right? And so for the first time, you have people that may question or doubt or just not able to participate. And I think just mentally preparing, whether that's your significant other or that's a mentor, but just have that group around you and mindset wise, and go into those conversations with confidence. You have something that they should want. And so just approaching that with that, because your body language, your persona, it's all part of the package. And so that was some great advice I had, which is go in with confidence. You have something they should want, and not to be arrogant, but just that will feel. And then secondly, we're women, and what we're really good at is preparing. So let's prepare, and out-prepare, because that's what we do. And that's exactly what me and my partner did. And I'm kind of embarrassed, but we did have, by the end, 100-page word question answer. By the end, we had every question ever asked, every answer. We started with 30 pages where we came up with all the questions. That's just one example of preparing, but we as women, you know, generalizing, we're really good at that. So let's just over prepare, because great mental mind and confidence and great preparedness, because we all deserve it and we should all be GPs, right? It's not a question of if,
Right.
it's a question of when. And
Yeah.
so those two things really, I think as I look back, were key for us.
Thank you very much. Miriam?
So for me, there are a lot of things that I've had to work on. Like I hated pitching, to be honest, and I had to like literally practice pitching. And I had a lot of pitches where I felt, let's say, not well treated by some of the LPs in terms of how to be told no. I think there's a million kind ways to say no to people. You don't have to pick a bad one. And so for me, it was just really learning to overcome that hurdle of taking it too personally. And eventually, like now, it's like, oh, I've talked to a few hundred different LPs, and I've found that I've built some really meaningful relationships with, maybe there's only 25 of them, but hey, guess what? That's all I really need to build my business. And some of those people are tremendous champions, and I am grateful for the opportunity to have them as partners in the business. And, many of them have referred other people that have also become LPs. So I think that was the hardest part of the business for me. I found getting out there, talking to entrepreneurs, getting deals done. Like I really loved and enjoyed that part. It was easy relative to the other part of being told no for the first time a million times in my life. So that's been overcoming my own hang-ups about that.
That's excellent. Thank you. And finally, Evelise?
So I'd say to the audience, particularly to the younger women, is don't leave this industry, right? We need you. We want you. It's a fabulous industry. It's fun. It's exciting. It's lucrative. You could have a lot of impact. And it can work even when you become a mom. Daphne has 3 children. I had 3 until recently. I just had a 4th. Crazy. But it's working just fine. And, I think this industry really could use a lot more women. And if you're not in the right place, find a different place. We're hiring, so give me a call.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. This has been excellent. I think it's been very informative to those who are building firms, who are thinking about building firms, and also who want to have people who give them encouragement. And all of these general partners want to encourage, and you've heard what they've said about encouraging you to, stand up, lean in, and march forward. And that's the story that you've heard from all of them today. So Fairview thanks you. Fairview thanks you for the work that you're doing and the returns that you are producing on our behalf. And we are very pleased to be a part of your network, and you are part of our network. So thank you all very, very much. And now